What up, everybody? Scuff D here. And we are doing Ezekyle Abaddon, Sons of Horus. It is time. I have not done a Sons of Horus Warlord deck build video ever. I have done, and I'll tell you why. I'll go into just a little bit, just a quick little backlash story here. Backlash is the Garviel Loken deck I have. I play Garviel Loken for backlash challenges only. The Sons of Horus are your starter faction, right? They're the faction that everybody plays. There have been numerous other content creators who've done, getting into the game, or here's how to play the game, or starting out and playing all the way to Terra with a starter deck, or whatever the case may be. And the Sons of Horus are your go-to faction. Everybody plays them. They're very familiar with them. And so when I started doing videos 2 years ago, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to start off with other things, meta concepts, deck concepts, card by cards, mechanic reviews. So I stayed away from the Sons of Horus in terms of video content. I'm very familiar with them. I've played them. I've had fun with them. But ultimately, because they were a starter faction, I had plenty of experience with them, and I wanted to do new things. Well, now it's time to kind of circle back with that. I kind of went back and I thought to myself, well, it's been a while, and I want to do Sons of Horus. I'm not going to do Loken, because Loken, I feel, still has been done to death. He's very straightforward. There's nothing wrong with Garviel Loken. He's a fantastic character, and he's a very solid deck, but anything I do is not going to be done before. Horus Lupercal, I feel the same way. I could do Tarek Targadon, and I was almost on the fence of doing Tarek Targadon, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to do Abaddon, because Abaddon doesn't see enough play. Now, there have been people who've been playing him a little bit more lately, but not too much, because a lot of the game is not focused with troops, and he is a very non-troop warlord. But I like him. I've always liked his ability. He had, a long time ago, the passive where he was immune to stun, and that was just a reason by itself to have him as your warlord. But he's not bad. With the rise of desperate defense decks, with the rise of decks that focus a little bit more on troops, whether that is through Blood Angels, or that is through the what card is it there that Arcology. That's the card I'm thinking of. Whether it's through Arcology, whether it is through cards that have got moderately decent health, they're on the rise. Stealth is still a problem for Abaddon. If they're stealthed, you can't target them. But that doesn't mean that the rest of his faction is at the same degree. The Sons of Horus, again, as a faction, are very strong, very versatile, and they work very well. So I've been playing them for a bit. Yeah, I'd say over a 66% win rate with Abaddon is pretty good. I feel pretty good about that. I figure I'll show off some games that I've got, and then take a look at his deck. Kind of explain some of the changes that I made, some of the cards that I'm using, and why I'm using them. I wanted to try to do a few things differently with a Sons of Horus build. You could do a straight, classic draw cards and tactic burn deck that you can do with Horus. You can do it with Tarvitz. You can do it with Loken. I want to do something different with Abaddon. I want to do a little bit more troop-focused builds, because their troops are not bad. So I was using cards like Dastric Squad. I was using cards like Chandon Squad. Some cards I have tweaked and changed a little bit. Some cards I haven't. I tried Crucial Choice out. I haven't disliked it just yet. So a lot of people, scoff at this card. Because your opponent gets a card. But late game, when you both have 10 energy and you play this card and you get to use that card first, that could be the game-winning card. So it's not a bad build. It's not a bad card, I should say. But Abaddon's got a built-in Seek and Destroy. So against factions that are on the rise, that rely on troops, whether they have 2 health, 3 health troops, 5 health troops, and you've got a troop in hand like Caban Squad, he has the ability to remove them. Now, with the recent Defenders of Caliban cards that have Shroud, or not Shroud, Duplicitous. I say Shroud. Duplicitous. That is something that he won't be able to handle. He won't be able to target those troops. And that can be problematic. But again, being a Sons of Horus and in the Sons of Horus card pool, that card pool is very flexible. They've got a lot of direct damage. They've got a lot of splash damage. A frag grenade across the board, wiping out all those Jaegers. I've already used the joke today, but I'm going to say that that's a Jaeger bomb. That's a Jaeger bomb. Is that a Jaeger bomb or is it a Jaeger grenade? It's a splash of Jaeger. That's what it is. Oh, there you go. I did it. I did it. I said it, and I don't regret it. But the Sons of Horus, so they've got direct damage cards, right? They've got Chariot of the Gods, they've got Vengeful Spirit, they've got Quick Fire. They've got all these ways to deal damage, whether that's to a warlord or to a troop. And then they've got cards that are drawing them cards. Chariot of the Gods. You've got this Medar squad. You've got their supply card, their 2-cost card that lets you draw 2 cards. They've got a lot of ways to keep their hand going. They're just a flexible faction, and they're not bad. And as much as they are like riding an old bike, they play well. I'm never going to feel bad about paying 4 energy to deal 4 energy and drawing myself a card. It just feels like a very strong play every single time. The entire purpose of the Sons of Horus is to go through, deal damage to the warlord, do that whole spear strike, right? That is Horus's strategy. Strike for the heart, strike for that leader. Boom. Damage to the warlord. Fast troops, draw cards, and then keep that pressure up. And that's something that you can do with the cards in your deck. And you can use Abaddon's ability to help minimize or keep clear threats on the board. And that's really the strategy. That's really what I go for when I'm doing that deck. When I built the deck, I wanted to use those troops that have got fast, that deal damage, that are powerhouses. Malgahurst and Targhost. Nice, solid troops. But the core feature is still going to be playing those tactics. And then using Abaddon just smartly. Using Abaddon here is going to bypass any of the quests that he could possibly have with this Ardravian Morse, right? None of the quest abilities get targeted by an opponent's warlord. So that's just going to eat up my attack. And then I'm going to still be able to play cards that I want to play, heal, deal damage, whatever it is that I'm going to be able to do. And that's nice. Having the ability to deal with a troop without taking damage, deal 3 health to a troop, whether it's vehicle or infantry or Astartes, is pretty nice. Against matchups where you're playing against an Angron player who has no troops on board, you're not having your ability. That can kind of be hampering. But you also have to look at it as it's also very liberating, because what it means essentially is that you are not tied by your ability. So instead of having to pay, do I pay 2 energy to use this and then put down a troop? Or you're just putting down cards. You're drawing cards and putting down cards. And that game is actually a lot more simple than people want to let on. At the very least, we throw down a card that's going to, pollute his hand. Not a big deal there. And then just use cards in my hand to cause problems for him. I think that Mutation was actually the card that won me the game. The game has frozen. Mutate is not the card that I want it to be. I think it was Contrador. Oh, no, it was Octo. That's what it was. Well, the game has frozen because cards created by other cards in replays still cause problems. This is the second time this has come up today. Darn it. Well, let's take a look at the deck, shall we? This is the deck as it stands today. When I say today, I mean probably about a week after I did that game there. It has evolved somewhat, but as you can see, the core feature is still very Sons of Horus. There are a lot of Sons of Horus cards in here because that's what I want to do. Whether you are starting out new in the game and that's all the cards that you have, or you want to revisit some of the cards and see how they work, the Sons of Horus are just strong. There's no denying it. I did, in place of Critical Choice, I put Kai Zalane in. I found that Kai Zalane costs the same, and then allows me to have the ability to pick the cards I want. Okay, and my opponent doesn't get those? Even better. The downside is he has a body. He's on the board, so against warlords who deal damage, or games where my opponent has got the ability to play defensive satellites, artillery strike, whatever the case may be, he's disposable. But early on, he's very handy. Late on, he's also handy. So there's no regrets there. I don't feel bad about having Kaiserlane in my deck. I also reduced, I think the deck I had initially had Goldstone Hunters in it. I took out Goldstone Hunters by one. I kept one in because I've got a lot of troops in this deck, so I feel one Goldstone Hunters is acceptable. And because Abaddon has got that built-in damage ability, I don't need to use them for troops normally. I can just use Abaddon's ability. And then I put in a Sabotage. Put in a Sabotage in there because I found that although I love playing Circuit Targ Host or some of these drop pod troops that are very strong, Chandon is just a strong body, your opponent plays a frontline troop, that's frustrating. And if I can sabotage that frontline troop and then they lose frontline and I'm able to deal the lethal damage, whether that be with my warlord in a tactic or troop in a tactic, that goes in handy. But also sabotage can work for a variety of ways to get rid of a threat, a troop that is got ward, precognition. It's a handy way to negate a threat of a card without removing the card. It's no outflank. Outflank is always a good card to have, but it's just as effective sometimes. And then I stuck with the big heavies. I stuck with your old fast attack Droger squad. I stuck with Surgur Tarkos. I definitely have Malgahurst in there. And then I put in second wave because I wanted to give this card a call. I wanted to give it a call and say, hey, come on over. Let's see what's going on. Let's see if I can make use of you. And with this many troops, late game, being able to copy Kabant squad or a Droger squad and use them a second time, it's just very handy. This is a very flexible deck. The Sons of Horus as a whole function very mid-range. They can do damage if they want to do damage. They can play the long game if they want to play the long game. Their cards, there's no penalty to playing these cards. They're just strong. And I used a mix of everything. I've got 1/3/3. I've got a couple of the guys who draw me cards. Where are they at here? The Murdask, right? Because I want to be drawing cards. But then I've got, Vadark in there just for the 6/6 body. I'm not playing Marks of Chaos, but I'm not going to hate a 6/6 body that comes in with a drop pod. I feel like that's a pretty good card to have. So it's doing okay. It's doing okay. Let's take a look at another game here. Take a look about this game at Alfarius. Now, a couple of the hard matchups for the Sons of Horus. When we're talking about games that are difficult, this is a mid-range deck. This is a mid-range faction as a whole. So what are their problems? What are their hard games? That's the beauty of mid-range. I think theoretically, cards that manipulate your options, whether that is the Alpha Legion being able to stun your stuff or use your stuff against you, or just overly aggressive decks, whether that is the Ruinstorm decks, those are very powerful, or Mortarion, who can stun the troops in your drop pod, or Vulcan. Vulcan can be very problematic, not because of the Salamander card pool, but because of his resilience and his survivor. And if he gets that hammer, the Udracool, any card he attacks, whether they're damaged or not, is destroyed. And while drop pod protects Chandon squad from taking damage, it also protects Vulcan from taking damage, and he gets to get rid of my 6/3 troop for free. So that's definitely a matchup that you don't want to see. Or if you are up against Vulcan, you don't want to see him get those cards. And at that point, you're really just relying on your direct damage abilities to drop his health below survivor and win the game. That is a hard game. That's a hard game because it really he can bypass the protection that you're relying on with your drop pods. But otherwise, stun is not something you want to see, and that's one reason why I have one Pi Alpha in the deck. It's just for this specific reason here, so that I can still make use of my 6/3. I'm not going to worry about healing my Warlord here, 3, if I can deal 6 to my opponent's Warlord and leave a body on the board. I feel like that's a smart play. And then I'm just going to use my cards to do as much damage to his Alfarius as possible. And I'm not going to regret it whatsoever. And because it's playing Alpha Legion, you don't want to fill your hand up too much, but also because this is a mid-range deck, I don't have too many cards that are going to clog my hand. I'm just going to keep being able to play cards that I want to play. This is back when I was still running Crucial Choice. I wonder if I used Crucial Choice in this game. Good question. Not sure. We'll find out. But yeah, stunning can be problematic. Poisoning to some extent can be for your high health cards, and that's why I don't have too many. I think most of the health cards I've got in this deck are like 3 health, or 3 plus drop pod health, I should say. So it's kind of conditional. So most of them are not like huge health cards. But if your opponent is stunning all your stuff consistently and you're not able to use them at all, and you're just relying off of tactics, then that can be kind of a pain in the butt. Let's see here. What else? As far as hard up matchups, I think that's really about it. They're just a flexible faction. There is no massive hard game for them. The Sons of Horus play well. And I think when you get rid of troops like that, and your opponent knows his days are numbered, his big ticket cards that he's got left aren't going to do anything against your warlord. The best that he can hope for is to play, the Harrowing, and if I've only got 5 or 6 cards in my hand because I played all the cheap cost cards, then his 9 cost card is not going to do much to my warlord. It's not going to hurt me at all. Let's play this game with Nassau. Is this gonna unpin? There we go. Heresy Nassau. Now this one is a game where you got a warlord who can be very cagey. You got a warlord who can deal some damage, and you've got to play your troops carefully because, if I have got a 2 health troop and he's able to bypass the drop pod and get precognition, that's going to hurt. But if I can get all my damage cards and do direct damage to his warlord, that's more to my benefit. And that's how you really get past his first strike and his precognition. Quick shout out. This game here, I should highlight it very quickly. The counterattack card for the Sons of Horus is really good. First off, it allows you to play, a card 1 energy higher, which if you've ever played, Abandoned Supplies, you understand the value of that. So it's really good. And if you're already playing a card that you've gotten Abandoned Supplies off of, then it gets even better. Now here we're playing against the Nassau, who I think makes a couple of misplays early on, but they're misplays that I baited him into, because there's no way that he's not going to want to not answer Melgahurst out 3 turns earlier than he should be. And what that's going to do is that's going to leave his Sentinel troop on the board. And because his Sentinel troop is on the board, he's going to draw less cards. And him drawing no cards, and Sons of Horus drawing Sons of Horus cards, that's enough for me. That's good enough for me to do what I want to do. I am going to get rid of the big troop. Kaler is still going to be a problem, but it's not a problem that I can't answer. And again, he's not drawing cards. I'm not worried about it. I've got health on the board. I've got direct damage on the board. I've got removal, soft removal on the board. I'm in a good position. And he has exhausted several resources really preemptively just to get rid of Melgahurst. And if I hadn't put out Melgahurst early, he could have drawn a couple extra cards and look to have, a bigger combo in there, either with the spear or with some fast flanking troops. So just by doing that, I'm not in a great spot, and I'm sure this is a top deck of outflank, but I still felt pretty good with the cards I had in hand, as well as Ezekyle Abaddon's ability. And I had to get rid of that Sagittarius squad because that had the ability to just destroy any of the stuff I was going to put on board. So we're going into Outlive, Outlast mode, right? Outlive, Outlast. 12 on 12. He's got 1 card in hand, which is his critical choice. Okay. Thanks for that. Thanks for giving me a hard removal card. I'll take it. I don't know. Is that the card that he copied? Maybe. Yeah, it had to have been. And I'm keeping around this guy as long as possible, just punishing him for having cards in hand. It's still theoretically health on health. It's an even game, but by cards in hand, what I have compared to what he has, as well as the ability to heal all this damage, I'm not hurting at all. And I do think that might have been a misplay for them. I think he should have either first striked or used use his ability on command. He chose not to, and thus he was punished for it with the Vengeful Spirit. But I think whether it was this turn or next turn, that would have been the end of it. Direct damage wins games. If you're Aramon and you precog things, that's one thing. You're still direct damaging your opponent's warlord. You're going to win games. If you're Angron, you can attack me with your 3 attack health, but your health is going to go down, and then my direct damage is going to win games. These Sons of Horus are very flexible. This is the deck as it stands now. Now, if you want to talk about cards you can include in your deck for your Ezekyle Abaddon, any card will do if it does damage and or it draws you a card. Some cards that you want to consider, and I have one of in this deck, is Smoke Grenade, Frag Grenade, and as you can see here also, as I said, Sabotage and Abandoned Supplies. You see a lot of cards in here that I have just one copy of. That's not a, even though I'm just testing things out, that's a conscious decision. A lot of these cards I only need to have one copy of. I want to remain flexible. Resupply is a nice card. That's the card I was talking about. Resupply is a nice card, but having 2 of them in a deck might be one too many. I might only need to use it one time in a game. And if I use it at the time I need to use it, then I'm benefited. You could put in a Zetsa squad and hope that they get the Mark of Tzeentch to go into stealth mode, but that's too much of a gamble for me. I would rather have a guaranteed drop pod because that is what is requiring my opponent to deal 2 cards, whether that is an attack and a tactic, or a flank and an attack, whatever it is. I want to force them to deal with it. I didn't put Chaggart Squad in because they don't have drop pod. I didn't put Backheart in because it's a vehicle and is susceptible to cards that stun or destroy vehicles. But if you don't have enough of the rare or common drop pod troops, you can certainly put those guys in. Chaggart Squad is an awesome card, starting out especially. A 5/5 for 1 energy that deals 3 damage. These guys are great value, solid artwork. And Kadark Squad is also really good, although vulnerable to Melgator, and that's why I don't have them in. Most of the cards I've got are either, is your opponent really going to want to put this guy back in your hand? Or is it, is your opponent really going to want to waste Melgator on this card? And then they don't get a choice. And then I'm starting to drop out cards like Chandon Squad, Melgahurst, Targhost, and Vidark Squad. So all the big stuff you don't get a choice on, I'm going to bounce it back. The rest of my little things is where you're going to have to waste those little removal cards or the bounce back cards, the Melgators and the inescapable cells. And at that point, if you're using your resources on my little things, I've shifted the gears, and my mid-range mentality, that's one win for me, right? So that's why I look at it. When it comes to neutrals, you don't need to use a lot of neutrals. You certainly can put in much more direct damage if you want to go that route, right? You could put in more artillery strikes, defensive satellites. Informant Network is a good card to consider. It is absolutely a good card to consider because for 5 energy, it allows you to break stealth across the board and also deal 4 damage to a stealth target. When I say 5, I'm counting 3 energy for Informant Network, 2 energy for Abaddon's ability. So that is enough often to get rid of the stealth troops that the Orphans of War love to employ, or the Ruin Storm employs as well. So keep that in mind. And then you could put in a couple Mechanicum cards, mainly frontline stuff like the Skitarii Protector to reveal a stealth, and then use Abaddon's ability and deal 3 damage to the stealth, or Mortar Carrier. But again, I was trying to go more with Sons of Horus cards. I think there's a lot of neutral cards here that you could put in, absolutely. You could put in the Angelic Presence. Give +1 health to all my 3 health troops that are in drop pods. There's nothing wrong with that. but it's not doing damage. And I want cards that are going to be doing damage. So maybe Frag Grenade is a better way to go. It's a little bit flexible. Maybe I want to play with a Mortar Strike. When I was playing my first year and I got Abaddon, Mortar Strike was such a crutch card to have because I could deal 3 damage to a troop, kill that troop, play Mortar Strike, and that 5 random damage is only going to land on my opponent's Warlord. It's a very handy card to have. It still is. If you're looking for some high damage input, you could surely take out the Chandon squads and go for a Mortar Strike. It's a little bit more variable, but it also may benefit you if you want to run the risk of flipping the coin and seeing if that Mortar Strike is going to hit a stealth troop. 9 times out of 10, Mortar Strike hits troops that are stealth. That's just my experience. That's just my experience in Tyranthicos Veterans. I'm not sour about that at all. That's just all my history with you know how many games with this is a total sidetrack diversion, but you know how many games with Falk I've played where I had Tyranthicos Veterans out, and then at 4 energy my opponent plays Mortar Strike, and that Mortar Strike hits my Tyranthicos Veterans who have escape vent on them. 9 times out of 10. That's how many times. That's how many times that happened. So it's a lot. When I say 9 times out of 10, times that by however many games I played with Falk. These are not going to show up because I was playing Falk before they did this Warlord stat thing, which is fantastic. Doesn't record the 2 months that I played with Falk. 2 months times 5 times 60. So like about 300 games of Falk minimum. 9 times out of 10. Anyways, flashbacks to Falk out of the way. Ezekyle Abaddon is very versatile. Don't let your prejudice for Abaddon throw you. He is a divisive figure. He gets a lot of heat and a lot of flack, as well he should. But he offers some versatility. He offers some flexibility, and you can really build a solid deck for the Sons of Horus and with Abaddon. And these cards, and when I say these cards, again, this is not set in stone. You could easily have 15 tactics, 15 troops, or 10 tactics, 20 troops, and you could pick and choose what you want to use. I choose the troops that I choose for my reasons and the reasons that I've given in this video, and I hope that has been something for you to consider and chew, and I hope it's been something to inspire you. If you like the video, please subscribe. Share it. If it's something that's inspired you and you want to share it with your lodge mates, give them some info. Have them check it out. If you don't have Melgahurst, that's okay. Play with another Vidark. If you don't have Vidark, then play with the Chandon. If you don't have Chaggart, play with the good old Valak Predator, dealing 3 damage straight to your enemy's Warlord. It's a common. I think you start the game with one. And it's a great card, and it's a 9/6. So if you don't have Vengeful Spirit, it's your next best thing. Although, P.S. get yourself a Vengeful Spirit. If you're gonna play Sons of Horus, you got to have that Vengeful Spirit. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do not play the Punisher. Pass on that. That is for lower tiers. That is for challenges. That is for if you want to try something out, go for it. But for Abaddon having a 2 energy ability, you really don't want to play a troop that requires 4 energy. It has to survive, and then you're not going to get anything out of it. You're going to get more immediate value from this guy. All right, that's it for me, guys. Hope this has been helpful. I hope you've been inspired, and let me know what you think. And we will be talking next time. Until then, keep playing Legions.